Morning, Subela.
Morning, Chairperson.
How are you? Morning, Sonia. How are you, Mishori?
I'm good, and how are you, Honorable Chair?
Good. We understand that we are live on social network, so all the speakers must show their face, so that at least there is that semblance of identity. How many members have logged in thus far, Shubela?
Thank you, Chairperson. You are 5 members so far, and 2 apologies received.
Okay.
Honorable Brother Tess and Honorable Mama Rekhan.
Oh, yes. Mama Rekhan, yes. As an appropriations committee meeting.
Yes.
It's at the same time.
Okay.
I think it's fine.
No.
I've received the delegation. It's okay. That will be here.
Yeah, but as I've informed you, the Deputy Minister, she's already logged in, and I can see also the DG.
Okay, good.
Yes.
Beautiful.
Chairperson, of the record, more or less, how long do you think we're going to take this meeting before we start?
Yeah, look, it entirely depends on the extent of the engagement by members. I've went through the presentation. Of course, the amended one has more meat now. More or less 2 hours, I suspect.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Mr. Dongo, no questions, then it's 1.5 hours.
Okay, if that applies to me and you, then it's 1 hour.
You were very explicit in terms of the state of the rail infrastructure, particularly around Johannesburg. So you will be the one that is leading the attack.
Chairperson, we can start now.
Good morning, honorable members.
Recording in progress.
Allow me to take this opportunity to formally open this meeting of the Select Committee with the entity of Department of Transport, PRASA. We last met with the team. It was in October, if I'm not mistaken. Honorable Brenda, can you mute? Honorable Matebula, thanks.
I'm muted, Chair. My apologies. I'm assisting other farm workers here. I'm in the farm.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Honorable members, let me indeed welcome the Deputy Minister, Shikungwa. Welcome to the Select Committee, Honorable Deputy Minister, the DG, the Chair of the Board, Dadara Matlakane, and the team that includes also the CEO. We will, without any waste of time, just indicate that I think the of key to us was just an update to the Select Committee in terms of with the commitment that the President has made, particularly on the Central Line and also on the Mabupani, in particular, but in general the infrastructure pipelines that the PRASA is as backed upon. But as I indicated earlier on, in one of the meetings that we had last year, the challenge also was some of the areas of concern that the entity is going through, particularly around vandalization, the invasion of some of your areas by dwellers. So it was only logical that having had that interaction in the past, we obviously then get an opportunity to get an update. And I will give over to the Deputy Minister to just give an opening remarks.
Thank you very much, Chairperson of the Select Committee, Honorable Ken Muyeng Mang. And let me also acknowledge the honorable members of the Select Committee, Chairperson of the PRASA Board of Control, as well as Mr. Leonard Ramatlaka, who is Mr. Leonard Ramatlakane, as well as the CEO of PRASA, senior members of the Department of Transport, DG, as well as the acting DG from the rail branch. Chairperson, I think it's proper that I again extend Minister's apology to the Portfolio Committee. He wanted to be part of the meeting. However, there are other pressing demands on his side and commitments on his side. However, we are here representing the ministry than just one office by the ministry. In the last year, the Select Committee afforded the Department of Transport as well as PRASA an opportunity to present the PRASA's turnaround plan. This was premised on the interventions we had instituted at the time. Since that presentation, we have made numerous strides in placing PRASA on a stable footing. When the board of PRASA was appointed at the end of 2020, it signaled a break with that chaotic past and a new beginning that placed at the center its focus, in fact, of its focus, the millions of South Africans who rely on PRASA services for their livelihood. The appointment of the Group CEO took us another step closer to stabilizing the organization. We are now under no illusion that we do not have the luxury of time to take a long-winded approach in restoring the services our people are so desperately in need of. We are mindful that in order to restore public confidence in our services and promote rail as a mode of choice, the Khawuleza ethos, which is doing things faster, must permeate through everything we do. This does not suggest by any means that we intend to cut corners, but it means that we must be responsive and agile in expediting decision-making. Through the shareholder compact between us and the board of PRASA, we have strengthened our oversight role on PRASA. On a regular basis, we interrogate PRASA's performance and provide guidance where we believe there is a risk of missing agreed targets. To address all these challenges and turn around the business of PRASA, key strategic interventions have been prioritized and their implementation accelerated. These include a massive infrastructure rehabilitation program, as well as returning to service the upgraded Central and Mabupani lines, amongst others. The multi-pronged approach we have adopted, which targets restoring of the service while simultaneously building internal capacity, will ensure that the impact of our interventions are seen and felt within a reasonable time. We cannot downplay the devastation or devastating impact of COVID-19.
My apology to you. My apology, DM. It looks like Honorable Boshoff now is also on the
Sorry,
platform.
Chair.
Thanks. Over to you, DM. My apology for that. You
Thank you
forgot to
very
show
much,
your,
Chairperson.
you forgot to show your face to the public.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much, Chair. We cannot downplay the devastating impact COVID-19 has had on the transport sector in general. This impact has been worse for PRASA as it continues to lose millions in revenue, which has been on a downward slide even before the pandemic. Due to a prolonged period where rail services were not operational, our infrastructure fell victim to criminals who looted and destroyed rail infrastructure from stations to track, to substations, and to fencing. This was further compounded by the illegal occupation of the tracks and rail reserves in Cape Town. Not only has this increased the cost of restoring the services, but has also affected the timelines we had originally planned to resume normal services on certain corridors. We are now hard at work rehabilitating and replacing the infrastructure in order to enable resumption of services and deployment of the new trains in the commuter rail environment. Chairperson, Honorable Chairperson, and honorable members, the Chairperson of the board will lead the PRASA presentation, which will unpack the details of our interventions. I hand over to you, Chairperson, and of course the board Chairperson will then take us through the presentation. I thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, DM, for laying the basis for the team to then move forward by contextualizing the progress that we have made since the last time we met. Over to you, Mr. Ramatlakane.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson, and good morning, Deputy Ministers, DG, honorable members of the Select Committee. This morning, I think that to cut to chase, we have a prepared presentation, which I think the Group CEO would then present in detail the turnaround plan since our last engagement. All I can say, I agree with the minister. I don't want to delay the meeting with another overall. I think she has captured everything else, but the detail can then be provided. Josie, if they can flight the prepared presentation, then we can then engage with the questions thereafter. If you allow, Chairperson, so that we can go through quickly.
Great, no problem. You can shoot.
Thank you, Chairperson. And honorable members of the Select Committee and the Honorable Chairperson, good morning. And good morning to the Honorable Deputy Minister of the Department of Transport, the Director General, and colleagues from the Department of Transport and my colleagues from PRASA. Thank you, Chair, and it's an honor and a pleasure to have this opportunity on behalf of PRASA and the organization to present to the Select Committee some of the urgent matters that are of concern, not just only to the committee, but to, I think, the country as a whole. We're just going to fly to the presentation. Chair, we have elected, with your consent and the consent of the honorable members, to go into a level of detail that I think is important, as it is reflective of the work that is being conducted to ensure that we are in a position to start seeing real change and real progress coming forth from PRASA. I know that these have been matters of concern for several years now, but as the Honorable Chair and the Deputy Minister have said, we are starting, I believe, to put PRASA on a sound footing that would be able to register substantial change and progress. We are providing here a progressive report on the refurbishment of the rail infrastructure. The report is going to focus, Chair, on the recovery of the priority corridors, our infrastructure maintenance projects overview, a project implementation dashboard, and then in particular, as you highlighted, Chair, the Central Line Rehabilitation Program and the Mabupani Rehabilitation Program, which are both presidential directives and have substantial attention attached to them, given the fact of the significance and their importance in being restored to full service. Could we please move to the next slide, please, Level? This is just the contents, Chair, which we will present this morning, as well as the depot modernization project. The focus is obviously on the priority corridor recovery program. This entails substantial work across the board on infrastructure maintenance. I'll be giving an overview of that work, and I apologize in advance at the level of the detail. But as I say, I think it's important because it gives the full picture of the kind of work that we've been forced to undertake under the current conditions that the company has found itself in. We'll also see the project implementation dashboard, which gives the timelines in terms of progress for the projects that are underway during this period. What we have is the infrastructure maintenance project review. This requires a substantial capital intervention program that will form the foundation of the investment that we're going to be making following projects: Perway, electrical projects, the telecoms projects, as well as the signal projects. This is leading to the ultimate goal of the rehabilitation of the entire infrastructure of the network. The project implementation dashboard gives a view of the projects being undertaken corridor by corridor. We start with the Pinasport Pretoria corridor, the scope of work, which is broken down into the electrical substations, the Perway, the signaling, and the telecoms. We then have the project scope detail, which will then gives the specific work that is being undertaken on a project by project basis along that particular corridor. So we're undertaking the refurbishment of substations and the refurbishment of the OHT lines, as well as the Perway performance improvement works. In many cases, Perway is not available, and some it is available, but the work that we're conducting provides a full assessment of exactly what needs to be undertaken. The timeframes that, as the work commences, and the timeframes that we're working towards in terms of completion are largely towards the middle of next year or the beginning of next year, in some cases from March, and then in other cases, it'll be towards the halfway point of the year for the Perway performance improvement projects, which are projected to finish at the end of August, and the refurbishment of the signaling systems, which is the points to train detection, the systems and signals. I think members, the honorable members will be aware that we have largely been using manual as opposed to automatic systems, which is causing great problems for the network. And we hope to be in a position during the course of the year to start working towards a fully automated system. This is largely going to be built around the signaling and telecoms that we will be implementing as part of those projects. So we'll be seeing the refurbishment of the entire signaling system. This is also being done countrywide. It's not just limited to these areas, but we've deliberately broken down so that members can see the extent and the level of detail that is going into the works as we undertake the projects. On the telecom side, we're looking at the rehabilitation of aerial optic fiber network, the rehabilitation of the underground fiber network, as well as optical transport networks, the rehabilitation of public address systems. Members will be familiar with the consistent complaints from commuters around lack of announcements, lack of electronic displays. We want to make sure that as we undertake this work, that modernization becomes part and parcel of that. In addition, the rehabilitation of the integrated control systems, all of this work is scheduled to end in March of next year. We go to the next slide, please, Leb. Similarly, Honorable Chairperson, the Salisbury-Pretoria line and the work that, the Pretoria-Calfontaine line, the work that is ongoing is similar in many respects. Again, a lot of signaling work and telecoms work that is being undertaken. Still with the time frame of completion end of March, completion end of July, as well as completion for the aerial fiber network substation during the period end of March to end of June for the underground fiber network. Chair has mentioned the extent of vandalism. It's not a secret. Vandalism has been devastating to us as an organization, and we are acutely aware of the need to improve our security capability as we improve the infrastructure along the network. So we're spending a tremendous amount of time on ensuring that our security strategy is very comprehensive. We're currently in the market as part of that to ensure that we're in a position to implement a full security strategy, not only in the Gauteng region, but across the country, where significant rehabilitation work is in progress. I can assure members that we are paying a significant amount of attention to addressing the issues that have arisen as a consequence of the vandalism, particularly the vandalism that we have seen over the course of the last year during the COVID lockdown period. Next slide, please. A line that has been particularly devastated, Honorable Chairperson, has been the Davidson to Germiston line. I was recently there with my colleagues just taking a look. It's gotten to the extent where rail track is being carried away, and we are quite aware that these are the lines that we need to ensure that that are protected, as well as the stations themselves. So part of that work on the Davidson-Germiston line, again, includes refurbishment of substations. A lot of the substations have experienced ongoing vandalism. So we want to make sure as soon as there's a handover from contractors that those substations are protected and that our security teams are part of the protection that we put in place to ensure that on an ongoing basis that we've made sure that we've adequately secured those sites once they are under our control. Per-way recovery works in the Davidson-Germiston line similarly is ongoing. We're also going to be utilizing on-track machining for screening, regulation, tamping, and rail grinding. That work is projected to end in August in 2022. Per-way performance improvement work similarly will be scheduled to end at the end of August. We similarly are undertaking signaling. Signaling and telecoms is a huge part of the refurbishment that's being undertaken. We have seen stations and lines that have been totally devastated as well. So it's a huge investment as part of the CapEx program, is a lot on the signaling of these corridors in particular. Next slide. I'll move now, Honorable Chair, to the Umlazi Durban region. Electrical substations, per-way, signaling, and telecoms again are being repaired. The vandalized substations are in Umbilo and Umlazi. That work will conclude at the end of June 2022. On the per-way side, end of March, where we are similarly, same ongoing work that's been undertaken. You'll notice, Chair and honorable members, that a lot of the work is very similar across the corridors. This is in part of that has to be undertaken across the network throughout the country, but it also shows the extent to which the vandalism has affected each of the regions and each of these particular systems that form part of the rail infrastructure. So again, signaling, where we are going to be replacing stolen signal cables between Durban and Kondela, and the telecoms, we'll be utilizing underground fiber between Durban and Umlazi. Amongst the lessons that we're learning, Honorable Chair, is that we have to ensure that now we employ the latest technologies in that exercise so that we can ensure that we can protect whatever we install. We're not only able to protect it, but to make sure that it is installed in such a way that it makes it even harder for any potential attempted vandalism to destroy the works as the works are conducted. So we're utilizing new technologies as part of that process, but also ensuring that we enhance what we're installing to ensure that it's not items that could easily be, if they are vandalized, taken and sold at scrap markets or scrap yards by criminals. We want to make sure that we're actually utilizing materials that is not so easily disposed of, and that it can actually be worthless once it's taken away from the network. Next slide. Between KwaMashu and Durban, Chair, the same projects on the electrical substations and OHTE. On the Purway, we'll see a lot of the rehabilitation, in particular of footbridges. A lot of commuters, we've seen a lot of encroachment along the rail reserve, and the inhabitants of those break across and walk across, which actually has impact on our safety capability. So we're building bridges in an attempt, footbridges, to ensure that we can limit the exposure of the network, not just to pedestrian traffic, but also to any potential threats that it could likely face. So those are ongoing projects as part of the Purway exercise, as well as the rehabilitation of drainage and formation. See that a lot in Tematlile and KwaMashu, and Avolka to Duff's Road. The Purway improvement works are similarly being conducted. Most of these projects will also terminate during the course of next year, towards the end of June and the end of September. On the Purway side, we're aiming for a target of the end of March. On the Purway improvement works on KwaMashu Durban, a lot of it obviously is dependent on the supply of and delivery of rails. But if we get those on time, we hope that we would then complete that work by the end of August. On the signaling side, we are replacing a lot of stolen signal equipment. What is interesting, Honorable Chairperson, Honorable Members, the criminals seem to know what to target. So it is not just mindless criminality. In some cases, we believe that it is organized. It is organized with a particular intent to destroy the networks and to go after what exactly can impede the ability of the rail infrastructure to operate. So we're seeing a lot of signaling. We have seen the theft of signaling equipment at Greenwood Park, Umgeni, Tematlile, and Bridge City. On the telecom side, we will install fiber between Durban and KwaMashu. That will complete at the end of June. Most of the work that's been undertaken was part of a long-term project to make sure that we are able to modernize to Cape Town, Simonstown. Electrical substations, again, the work has...
my apologies, you.
Yes.
I think there's a disruption in terms of your network. At least you can switch off your video now, so that at least there is no disruption of your connectivity. Thank you. Did you get that, CEO? It looks like there's a challenge. Is it only me or?
Chair, I can hear you. But
We could
Okay,
hear
please,
Chairperson.
okay.
We can hear you, Chair.
I suspect this is Mr. Ramatlakane, the CEO. Mr. Ramatlakane?
I'm here, Chair. I can hear you loud and clear.
I get a sense that the presenter has a challenge of the network. Is there anyone that can come in while we are still trying to locate him?
Or else it looks like it's cut off because it just went silent.
Yeah.
Okay, he's back. He's back, Chairperson.
I'm not sure if there was Chair. Can you hear me now, Chairperson?
Yes, Mr. Matthews, you were cut from the platform. I was saying that maybe what you could do for the sake of connectivity, you can switch off your video at least there.
Yes. Okay. Thank you, Chair. And apologies to members for that slight interruption. So the Cape Town, Simonstown, Wynberg line is also having work conducted on the electrical substation. This involves the installation of high-speed circuit breakers, the supply and installation of substation safety doors. As I've also spent quite a bit of time in the Western Cape over the course of the past month with colleagues who are working on this. We've seen the extent to which substations are being particularly targeted. So we're making sure that as we repair those substations, we put in the kind of doors which will take you quite some time to be able to break through. So basically safety doors similar to what you may use in a bank. We're also going after the same kind of doors to ensure that access is very, very difficult. And in fact, it will take you so long that our security teams would be able to arrive there while you're trying to break in. We are also supplying and installing 5 MVA transformers, rectifiers, and wave filter at Falls Bay. This work will be completed by the end of March. Again, the refurbishment of Perway assets in response to the directives from the RSR, and then the Perway maintenance services to augment MO capacity in the Western Cape region. This work is on an ad hoc basis, as and when we identify specific challenges, then work is conducted. So as part of this, we obviously have not just the rebuilding of the infrastructure, but ongoing maintenance. I've spent a lot of time with our maintenance teams, again, in the Western Cape, seeing some of the work that's being done, not just on the OHTE lines, but on the rail lines themselves, on actual rail tracks specifically, the work that the teams do. And I must say that our teams are very dedicated. They go out in all kinds of weather to make sure that the trains can run on the lines that are working. Next slide, please. Again, the Cape Town, Simonstown line, the Perway is of particular significance, and we are investing a considerable amount of CapEx in our Perway rehabilitation works on an ongoing basis. Again, largely on the rail side, it depends on supply and delivery, but we're targeting the end of August 2022. The manual screening of level crossings is other work that's ongoing, that's going on between Cape Town and Woodstock. That work will complete by the end of April, mid-April, but I would expect by the end of April 2022. In many cases, Chair, you will have noticed, I've not referred to it, but the final column which gives the project status, so where we are in terms of the award of those projects, the contracting stage, the execution. We've spent a considerable amount of time, as the Honorable Deputy Minister indicated, making sure that our internal capacity is more efficient. A big challenge for us has been historically our SCM and procurement. So we've spent a lot of time making sure that our ability to plan and execute and procure and contract is a lot more efficient than it has been, so that we don't end up taking 7 months to bring something into the marketplace. So our internal capacity and our ability to plan and execute is an area that we've spent a lot of time over the course of the last 6 months improving to ensure that we can actually meet the deadlines and the timetables for this. Again, the Cape Town, Simonstown continues with additional work on the signaling and the telecom side. We're ensuring that we install as many, the equipment should be vandal-proof to the extent possible. Signaling spares should be available, and the procurement of critical components for signaling is something that we're spending considerable attention to make sure that there's no time lag in our ability to deliver according to the schedule that our technical teams have set up. We're also upgrading level crossings. We're in continuous contact, Honorable Chairperson, again with the rail safety regulator to make sure that we're compliant. So we have on a full-time ongoing basis a nominated safety manager who works with the RSR, works with our technical team to ensure that our ability to be compliant is consistent with the expectations of operational safety. Next slide, please. Next slide. Again, on the project implementation dashboard, Chair, moving to the Cape Town, Simonstown from Athlone. The work there includes OHTE, substations, per-way infrastructure, signaling, and telecoms. The supply of 5 MVA transformers, rectifiers, again, wave filters at Crawford, per-way work that is ongoing, the per-way improvement works, the supply and installation of concrete universal sleepers at various locations along the rail lines. This is some of the work that I observed. In many cases, our sleepers are quite old, and we're making sure that we invest considerable resources and capex into upgrading our sleepers and ensuring that the safety capacity of those is consistent with the expectations of the RSR and commuters, of course. So our vandal-proof trackside elements on the signals, point machines, axle counters, the rehabilitation of Maitland indoor and outdoor signaling equipment, signaling spares, point machines, LED spares, signaling cables, and the procurement, again, of signaling mission critical components. As we are going through these projects, Honorable Chair and Honorable Members, I can assure the committee, the select committee, that we're utilizing the most modern technology. We're building a rail system, which we, at the end of that process and continuing, definitely is going to be certainly a world-class system. We've started having engagements to be able to benchmark ourselves with some of the leaders in rail around the world, in France and in Germany, to ensure that PRASA starts to actually reach the kind of levels that it should. But we want to be able to have continuous engagements with the experts in a variety of areas. And this is something that we're now doing on an ongoing basis to ensure that our standards meet the standards that they should be benchmarked against across the globe. Next slide. This slide, Chair, I apologize. It is a little busy. It contains a lot of detail, and it may be somewhat confusing. But if I could just speak to it very briefly. This is the corridor, the infrastructure corridor recovery, and where we are at this particular point. So we've gone through the respective corridors across from Gauteng, the Western Cape, and KwaZulu-Natal. The type of service that's currently in progress, each specific line, the resumption date of that service, when it started, the type of system that's being used. Are we using diesel? Are we using electric traction? That is indicated there. But at the same time, when will we be introducing electric service? I think that's the big question that the country has. When will we see the beautiful blue trains, the EMU trains? So we've tried to give an indication of when those will start. Obviously, in the Western Cape, Honorable Chairperson and members, you may have heard that we've started service of the EMU train on a limited basis due to the permit being granted by the RSR for us to operate that service during non-rush hour periods. So that has started out. Our teams have conducted training for 2 weeks to make sure that they're familiar with the workings of the new trains, but to be able to make sure that from a safety aspect, that we understand exactly what it is that we're dealing with. So that work has been done, and the train sets will start working. We then break it down to the availability of the respective train sets per area, per corridor, and then the availability of infrastructure. Red is not a color that we like to see, because it shows that the performance is still something that we need to work on and spend considerable time bringing it to green levels. So that is just a view of what that graph shows, Chair, and it gives you and members, I think, an indication of status as it is at today's date. In some cases, obviously, we modify this on an ongoing basis. We have instituted a team that's specifically focused, Isitimela Sabantu, that is specifically focused on the program management of and recovery of each corridor by corridor, so that we can track progress almost to the last detail to ensure that we know exactly where we are on an ongoing basis. Next slide, please. Chair, I will now speak to the presidential projects, in particular, the Central Line Rehabilitation Program and the Mabupani Rehabilitation Program. On the Central Line, which has been a line that, as you know, Honorable Chairperson, and I think you mentioned briefly, has been particularly challenged by the work, or rather by the encroachment on the Langa line over the last few years. We recently obtained a judgment in our favor, but it has its own challenges in that there has to be a multifaceted approach to dealing with that with the City of Cape Town, the province, as well as the HDA and ourselves. So that is something that is ongoing at the moment, but I'll just speak to the rehabilitation program itself. The various projects that we're working to include the substation rehabilitation. Work description is 3 substation work packages. Those are currently out to tender. Then there are smaller regional projects at Nyanga. That work is now currently underway, and at Belleville. The rehabilitation of OHT systems, we have appointed contractors for 33 kV and 3 kV works. That work has began over the course of the last month after the site visits that were conducted. And the works that are also due to end by the end of the 6-month period. So that's work that's currently now has just commenced during the month of August. 3 kV, the 3 11 kV work packages are now out to tender. That tender will close at the end of September. The resignaling work that has been conducted under the Thales Mazia consortium is currently in negotiation. Thales, who have been the principals in this consortium, are currently in discussions with ourselves as to whether they wish to continue on the project. They've done a substantial amount of work over the years, but we're also exploring with them whether the local partner, Mazia, would continue on the work and proceed, but still utilizing some of the Thales capability where necessary. The train stations rehabilitation, that tender for the consultant closed last month. We want to ensure that not only our own internal teams have capacity, but if where necessary, we have gone to the market to bring in professionals who we believe can give us added capacity as well as experience to administer some of these projects. The station repair work will start in November 2021. The walling project, critical to our security. We have designs that have been concluded. In fact, the design team presented to a board workshop a week ago, and have had substantial engagements with our security team to ensure that the work that is proposed will be fit for purpose. So we would then now expect to appoint the contractors for that. That process has started, and we hope that the appointments will be made during the course of September. It's a very complex project because of the areas that the walls would have to be built on, but also a very capex intensive project, given the kind of technology that we want to utilize in conjunction with the building of the wall. So that is a project that we are escalating because it impacts directly on the protection of the network and the protection from vandalism. I spoke, Honorable Chair, on the removal of illegal settlements. So that has been prioritized. The eviction order has been obtained. We're hoping with negotiations, the chair of the Board of Control, will actually be meeting with the Mayor of Cape Town tomorrow, as well as members of the provincial leadership and executive, to discuss a consolidated approach to this issue. We hope that if we can remove the illegal settlements, that we would then be in a position to accelerate the work along the central line to be able to restore the line. I think everybody is concerned about that, but we certainly appreciate the urgency of that project. Next slide. So Honorable Chairperson, just the program overview of the interim solution, the alternative transport considerations, whether we would utilize a rail-based service between Langa and Cape Town. That's something that is an interim solution while the removal of the illegal settlement. And then the limited service between Cape Town, Yanga, and Belleville, and the times that service would operate between 5 a.m. and 8 p.m. in the evening. We would utilize 4 train sets, which would be of 14 coaches long, 22 train trips per day. The journeys would last plus minus 60 minutes, but we'd unfortunately be using manual authorizations given the fact that the signaling and OHT work is still underway. Phase 2 would be the full service of the entire central line, which would operate same times, but we would utilize more train sets, 33 train sets, 14 coach long, 232 train trips per day. The frequency would obviously be 10 to 15 minutes during peak periods and 30 minutes off peak. This assumes that our signaling systems would be fully operational. On the first phase, Honorable Chairperson, our target date is December, but it will obviously largely dependent on the removal of the illegal settlement in Langa and the rehabilitation of the Perway. But we are accelerating this process because our goal and our charge from the department and the board is to get this completed by December, according to the timelines that had previously been established. For phase 2, if signaling is operational, then we'd be looking with signaling for December 2022, for July 2022, if we don't have the signaling. This is dependent on, in Philippi, settlement being removed by the end of December 2021. So the settlement issue has become a very thorny issue for PRASA, but I think with the engagements that we're following, we hope that we can bring it to a resolution. This just gives you a program overview of where we are currently on the project. We're sitting at 47% complete. I would hope that my intention is that this number by October should be far different and we should be closer to a 60%, but it is all contingent, obviously, on the illegal settlement removal. Next slide. Honorable Chairperson and honorable members, I'll just speak to the Mabupani Rehabilitation Program. Again, one of the key presidential projects. The substation rehabilitation is made up of 14 substations, which are broken into 2 work packages and a 70% reduction in CU content. The rehabilitation of the OHT system, which is made up of 160 kilometers of HTE, which is broken into 5 work packages. Our intention is to reduce the copper content. Copper is very attractive to scrap metal dealers and to the vandals. So we want to find ways to reduce our copper content. The re-signaling is made up of 9 signaling stations, part of the work that has been conducted by Siemens on the re-signaling program. Again, the reduction of copper content and the reinforcement of critical content. Our trains rehabilitation, which will be made up of 23 train stations, which will be broken into 6 work packages. It's difficult for us to undertake some of this work simultaneously, given the extent of it. So typically it's broken up into work packages to make it more efficient. The walling and security program, the design has concluded for the walling project. The consultants have finished. They also presented to the board a week ago, and the solution, the walling solution, Honorable Chairperson, will be broken into 16 work packages. The security intervention, security has been in continuous involvement with the design process to make sure that there will be targeted deployment and security interventions where necessary along the corridor. So we're paying a lot of attention to this in Mabupani in particular, given the extent of the vandalism that we had experienced there. The street-to-street bridges project, which is made up of up to 8 bridges, will be divided into 8 work packages. Chair, Honorable Chair, just to give the program overview again, the interim solution, again, the alternative transport considerations to operate in the morning and in the afternoon during the peak period, unfortunately, limited no service during off-peak. train trips per day. The headways, 1 hour 50. This is this has been a service that's been running since November 2020, and we hope that during phase 1, this Mabupani will start to see it operational by the middle to end of November, if everything goes according to plan currently, and I believe that it will. Our operating times will be from 5 in the morning till 8 in the evening. We would run 62 train trips per day on a 30-minute frequency. On phase 2, we would run a full service operating same times, 5 a.m. to 8 p.m. in the evening, 232 train trips per day on a 10 to 15-minute peak frequency and 30-minute off-peak. The intention is to have the phase 2 operational by December. A program overview, Honorable Chairperson, suggests we are now at 54% completion. I believe that we will see definitely, certainly a higher number by October, and we'll be in a position then to, I think, give a more specific indication of the timelines. But I think at this point, our timelines are fairly accurate. We are spending a lot of time on Mabupani in particular, and on a regular ongoing basis, making sure that our program managers are giving up-to-date and timely reports on the milestones, if the milestones are being met, what exact interventions are required, where we need to intervene, where we need to assist, where we need to ensure that SCM are complying and are responding in time. We are doing that. So we are, Honorable Chairperson, making sure that our ability to intervene is very targeted, it's very specific, but it is to ensure that we deliver on time. Next slide. What we've seen, just for the committee, the select committee to note on Mabupani, what has been the impact of job creation and the impact on SMMEs, which I know is of particular interest to Parliament, is jobs. So we have appointed 258 local laborers. There are 12 interns in the build environment that have been appointed. Local SMME participation on the security side. We have 1 security company. On the stenciling side, 5 ablution facilities, 5 SMMEs working on site establishment, 3. On the clearing and transportation in small building works, you'll see 12, so 26 in total. 30% of the contract value was subcontracted. We are trying to ensure that as a prerequisite for any of the work that PRASA awards, that in line with Regulation 9 of Preferential Procurement Regulations, that we are compliant and that we insist that contractors must subcontract, particularly in the area where there is ongoing work, so that we can make sure that there's upliftment of the communities and stimulate interest in the area. Because if the communities are involved, you'll find that they're actually your best and first line of defense. So we want to make sure that wherever we are conducting large-scale projects, the local community benefits, but benefits in a structured way, not in a way in which it's going to obviously create any short or long-term problems for the organization. Next slide, please. Chair, a very important aspect of the rehabilitation that we are engaged with is our depot modernization program. This is a very critical project, as we have found that our depots have largely fallen way behind the standard that we need. So we have embarked on a very, very concentrated depot modernization program over the course of the last year, and specifically over the course of the next few months. We will be going to the market on a number of projects. Can we just please go to the next slide? Thank you. The focus for the next year and beyond, Honorable Chairperson, is firstly the projects which are at the initiation stage. That is Columberg Bloemfontein, which we hope to advertise and close by March next year. The Port Elizabeth and East London depots. A lot of our depots sit on land that does not actually belong to PRASA. So we're hoping to finalize land transfer. Some of that land previously has belonged to Transnet. So we're in negotiations with them around the land transfer issues, which will then allow us to advertise the tenders. The projects which are at the specification stage are Braamfontein, Benrose, and Wilmington depots. We would advertise those tenders between September and November this year, conduct the evaluation during December, January, and award Braamfontein in February, Wilmington in February, and Benrose in February as well. Why this is particularly critical, Honorable Chairperson, you'll be aware, Honorable Chairperson, of Gibela, the Gibela factory, which is building the EMU trains. As the trains are completed, the trains have to be parked. Wilmington has been the depot that has been utilized, but Wilmington is becoming significantly overcrowded. So what we're finding is that we need to now look at our other depots within the province. Some of the trains we've moved to KwaZulu-Natal, others are in the Western Cape, but the largest bulk of the new train sets are currently sitting in Gauteng. So Wilmington, as it's become overcrowded and becomes an issue, we've now had to look at other depots where we can move old train sets to accommodate the new trains as they're being built. So the modernization of the depots takes on a very critical significance for us, in that we want to be able to accommodate all our train sets in a secure environment as soon as is possible. So this is why the depot modernization project takes on an added significance. The projects which are at evaluation stage are Pardon Island Depot, where we hope to appoint in January for the work to start in February 2022. We want to ensure, Honorable Chair, that the depots are also adequately fenced, or in some cases where we would use walls. We had asked our consultants to go out and conduct evaluations and assessment so that we can actually improve the security at the depots, because obviously with the onset of the new trains, we want to ensure that they're adequately protected. This obviously has significant implications for insurance as well. So we want to make sure that we're taking adequate measures early, and we're not reacting to when something happens. That's when we then react. So we want to plan that as the depot modernization projects are underway, we've also built security into ensuring the security of our assets. On the projects awarded, Salt River, Durban Yard, and Springfield, this project has been put on hold due to an ongoing court case, but we're hoping that there'll be a resolution in one way or another, we hope, so that the work can continue, because again, it'll have very serious implications for us were the court case to drag on for a lengthy period. The work has had the work that had started has come to a halt, but we're hoping that there'll be a resolution of this matter one way or another. Next slide. Honorable Chairperson and honorable members, thank you for allowing PRASA to present. And I hope that the presentation was not too lengthy, but as I said, Chair, I think that the level of detail is important given the questions that the committee had asked at the last presentation. Thank you, Honorable Chair and honorable members, and Honorable Deputy Minister and DG and the Chair of the Board. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Matthews, for that comprehensive presentation in terms of the unfolding programs and projects across the country, but also emphasis on the presidential projects. I will now invite the members of the Select Committee to engage with the presentation. I have noted Honorable Tim Brataseth, then Honorable Khai, then Honorable Matebula, then Honorable Boshoff. In that fashion, let's then Honorable Dango. Let's start with Honorable Brataseth. The floor is yours.
Chair, thank you very much. Chair, I'm recovering in my sickbed at the moment from a little issue I had yesterday, so I will not put my camera on, but I'd like to thank Mr. Matthews for the presentation and just touch on three things, if I may, Chair. First of all, I'd like to welcome the use of alternate technological methods for communication, which will reduce the need to steal goods. Especially, I know that fiber, for instance, has been used in Europe in places like the French system, and like a hairline fiber that is not worth anything outside of the communication sphere. The other question I just wanted to raise with Mr. Matthews, he spoke about the lines in Durban, and he spoke about Commercial Durban. Is he aware of the line that winds its way up through the Queensborough area towards Pietermaritzburg, the inland line, where all the aluminium conductors have been stolen all the way along? If you drive along there, you just see them all hanging. I'm sure they are aware of that. And just maybe some comment on that. And then finally, one point I want to make about theft on railway lines is it's often theft of items that obviously go to scrap. And I raise again the issue that surely we can, the problem is, Chair, is that the SAPS arrive at a scrapyard and then people come with all sorts of stories as to where they got the copper from, where this came from, where that came from. The way to sort this out is either per metro or even countrywide, a system is set up where only two or three, maybe four maximum companies are given the sole rights to sell, let's say, used copper in the market. Only them. And obviously there will be a competitive process to receive this license to only sell that. So therefore, if you arrive at any other scrapyard anywhere else in the country and they have copper, they are in contravention, and it will be confiscated and they will be arrested. Only certain people may have copper, similar to diamonds. Right now in South Africa, only certain people are licensed to have diamonds, uncut diamonds, for instance. And I believe that this is the way that, and so the question to our friends at PRASA is, are they working on such a system? Is the Department of Transport working on such a system with, let's say, the Department of Police, Justice, to come up with a system whereby only certain people are licensed to sell the items that are normally stolen in terms of theft from PRASA and other infrastructure around the country? Thank you, Chair.
Honorable Khai, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. Thanks to the Deputy Minister for the opening remarks, and the Chair of PRASA Board, the Group CEO. Chair, I would also like to thank the Group CEO for the presentation. That is very comprehensive. But as you know, Deputy Minister, that the Select Committee, we represent provinces. Sometimes we would like to see what is happening in our own provinces. But as we listen to the presentation, the focus is mainly on 3 provinces, which are always the focus of government and entities general, the marginalization of other provinces. And this result in people from provinces migrating to these provinces that are always getting the lion's share, from government and entities. I've been just looking for my province, for example, Eastern Cape, particularly where I come from, East London. There's only one line on the issue of modernization of depot. Even there's still negotiations between PRASA and Transnet on the issue of transfer of land. There's nothing about the refurbishment of or refurbishment, sorry, of the rail infrastructure. Yet we are aware that there are, for example, if you look at even today, if you go to News 24, you'll find that there's a statement about the collapsing PRASA infrastructure in East London, the stations between East London and Berlin, a reduction of trains between that line between East London and Berlin. So sometimes it's disappointing and demotivating that the focus always will be on 3 provinces, Gauteng, Western Cape, and KZN. Whether it's Transnet, whether it's PRASA, whether it's at least Central is trying, but in the past it was always a situation. Maybe that's why I'm raising directly this to the Deputy Minister, not necessarily to the entity, so that these entities of government, I think we need to check whether when they deliver services, there is equity, so that the other provinces are also benefiting, or they, instead of us continuing to be underdeveloped, and we have provinces that are deindustrializing because there's no investment in those provinces. So that's the first point I wanted to raise, Chair, that the board, Chairperson Ramashaka, that the board must make sure that there's equity when it comes to these resources, that other provinces also benefit from these entities, because private sector won't come to these provinces. Government itself and its entities should be the ones that make sure that they invest, so that then private sector can follow in terms of investment. So I just want to check whether how much has been budgeted for all these projects, the refurbishment of the rail infrastructure. I see that from time to time, the group CEO would tell us in terms of percentage, in terms of the work that has been done, but there's no indication in terms of budget that has been spent, or the expenditure so far with regard to these projects. I hear that there will then be a meeting tomorrow between the Cape Town, City of Cape Town, mayor and the chairperson of the board. But generally, I think that there should be, especially along the communities that are along these railway lines, perhaps there should be some collaboration between PRASA and the communities, so that communities themselves get involved, so that they are the ones who make sure that the stations and this train station and other infrastructure of PRASA doesn't get vandalized, so that they also take a responsibility, because there's no guarantee, even with this refurbishment, that in future you're not going to have vandalism taking place in these areas. Yeah, so those are points there, Chair, that I thought I must raise, because I'm not sure what is the criteria in deciding on the priority corridors, as to whether we need to invite the president so that he can see what is the situation in our areas, and then after that, then you can have presidential projects. Because even this one, I'm sure it's maybe could be just during the election campaign. I know there was the one time where he was in a train that got stuck. I suspect that this was a result, this project, as a result of that situation. maybe we need to invite him in East London so that he can be in a train between East London and Berlin. And then perhaps thereafter there will be a presidential project. Thank you very much, Chair.
Honorable Khai, Honorable Matebula.
Thank you very much, Chair. I think Honorable Khai has already touched the point that I wanted to raise regarding the issue of province, because I'm from Limpopo. I didn't hear anything about my province. And then the second one, in the presentation, Chair, I didn't hear much about the issue of how the department, what the department is doing to fight corruption. Whether they have specific cases that is reported for corruption, and then how many have they resolved so far? And then the second one will be, what is the department doing to make sure that how train is more cheaper like any other train, so that our people can be able to use it. As we speak, it looks like how trade is designed for rich people because it's not affordable. So I would like to know from the department, what are they doing to make sure that the housing is more affordable? Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Matebula. Honorable Boshoff.
Thank you very much, Chair, and good morning to everybody. Honorable Khai touched on the budgets that will be made available, or how much is the budget that is being made available. But what I would like to know is how much has been lost and is still being lost as an income on a daily basis due to the destroyed infrastructure on the various nodes in the provinces that are being attended to. And then I read an article that you have launched a program, People's Responsibility to Protect project. Could you expatiate on this and explain to us whether this is a voluntary project where people are going to be asked to protect the railway lines along the areas where they live? Or is this something that's going to be taken up and people are going to be appointed and paid? And if so, how many people will be appointed and what will the expenditure be? And then reading up on PRASA as well last night, I came across an article where they spoke of a 28.6 billion irregular expenditure, and that you have now appointed legal firms or through National Treasury to carry out an investigation on behalf of PRASA. Can you give us a report back on how much has been done, how much has been recuperated, as this 28.6 billion can go a long way if we can get something back on that to assist these provinces that Honorable Khai and Honorable Matebula spoke about that have not been receiving any attention from PRASA. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Boshoff. Honorable Dango.
Thank you very much, Chair. And as instructed earlier, I shall be very brief. The one question is the railway line from Springs to Randfontein. When is any progress going to be made on that? The other one is the Soweto-Johannesburg one, and that one carries more than 1 million passengers. And these are poor people. And when are is that going to get done? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Dango, for that. Let me just check as further at any other members that I'm leaving behind. Just from my side, in your slide, you also made reference to the to the projects around Salt River and Devon that was put on hold due to a court case. I must say that probably I think you need to probably get us more details on this one, because as my colleagues have said, this project is also all over in the news. It was interdicted, and I'm more interested with what the CEO said on the fact that the resolution will be in one way or another. They're looking forward to that. Just clarity, because in reading on the reasons behind the interdict, it's how the award was made. The thrust thereof is that it was not advertised, and as a result thereof, I think it was interdicted by I think KIP. I just want to get a sense as to why was this bit not advertised? Is it correct that it was not advertised? Because for the resolution to take place, particularly if the bid was interdicted because, if the award was interdicted because the bid was not advertised, the resolutions thereof would entail re-advertising the bid, so that we are then able to unlock this protracted court case. Because if you don't do that, then it would mean that it will be the resolution of Part A, which is the interdict, and Part B, which is now a reflection of a protected case as to whether the bid was awarded fair or not. The second point that I want to raise with the team is on the Langa, because in October we were informed that the minister has embarked on a process of consultation with the Western Cape provincial government to try to resolve this matter. And that was in October. But in terms of the presentation, the CEO indicated that tomorrow they are meeting with the mayor. What I want to understand is as to whether was there no resolution from the interaction between the Department of Human Settlement, the Western Cape Provincial Government, and also the Department of Transport, as it was reflected in the presentation that we received in October last year. I think the Deputy Minister will understand the complexity of what one is raising now, given the fact that this is September, and the fallout of any eviction order that will emanate and arise as a result of the eviction order during the COVID environment, but more than that, given the local government preparation. So I just want to get a sense as to whether did the engagement, as indicated last year, that the minister is leading a process that is comprised of the National Department of Public Works, the Western Cape Provincial Government, to try to resolve this issue of the invasion of the central line by the illegal settlements in the rail reserve. I think it's in Langa, Philippi, and also Kailicha. Then the last one is on the issue of the security. If you could just probably be updated. You'll remember that in our engagement last year, in terms of the presentation that was made, that was identified as a turnaround. There are a number of milestones that were identified around the finalizing of the security tender. And key to that was you raised an issue around e-security, around the drones, around the intelligence-driven operations. So what I want to get a sense is as to whether, because then one of the challenges that was raised in the presentation was that PRASA was also interdicted from advertising security tender. So I want to get a sense as to whether was that matter resolved or not. Because one of the areas that was raised in that presentation was that the target, you were faced with the process of insourcing additional 3,100 protection officials, but you then indicated that you will start with, I think it was 500. So if we could just probably be updated in terms of how far is this process? This 3,100, is it from the security company that was appointed? And whether this insourcing of this protection officials, were they cleared? Are we comfortable that they're able to do the work? With this number that we have and the challenges that we have around vandalizing, is this the best option that we could do in terms of trying to beef up the upgrading of the security? Thank you. And let me give over to the Deputy Minister and the team.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Let me maybe allow the DG to respond to questions that are related to the department, then be followed by the chair of the board, including this group CEO. In that order, I will come last, if there will be.
Thank you, dear. DG? Ntate Moemi, a o kgone?
I am here, Chair.
Okay, then you can hit the ground running.
No, Chair. Honestly, I have no comments, sir.
Okay.
Yes.
Let's then give over to the PRASA chair.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I will also just leave the camera off in case it affects the sound. Chair, I would quickly just start with some of the answers, and then whatever I left over, we'll ask the Group CEO to give more details. The first question I think that came from Honorable Tim was the issue about restrictions. Basically, he was talking about prohibition of the just open the system that everybody has a license to sell these commodities, including copper. It is a problem. I think the Honorable Tim there raises an important part, which we're still grappling with as well, because the rail line that has been chopped and cut off is being sold at the scrapyards. Scrapyards are just buying this material, even though they know, as Leonard I cannot just have a piece of rail line because I don't own something like that I can own to go and sell. But they're allowing that to be sold on the basis that the Constitution provide that they participate in the economy of the country. In fact, some of the scrapyards, the police are frequenting there, but they've since been told by interdict that they should not frequent there because they spoil the business. That the scrapyards are doing their business, and there's frequently coming there, they're chasing off the customers. Basically, you see a fight back from the scrapyards who knows that they're doing something wrong and that they're selling something that can only come from the either PRASA or Transnet. As long as they can sell it, they don't want to be interrupted. It's something that may require prohibition, which is because the Act does not prohibit, does not make that descriptions where these scrapyards must comply with the particular license that they've been given and be open for scrutiny. It may require the legislation, some legislation to be amended to be specific on that. And I think that's an issue that in the process, we would then have a discussion with transport around which legislation could be introduced or come up to constrain some of those activities. So that's the first response on that question. At the moment, we don't have, in fact, when you go to scrapyards and you say this rail line can't come from nowhere else except what we have lost in Gauteng, the 23 kilometers of rail line that has been chopped out, then they will ask you to provide the identity that this actually is yours. Now this basically, you can see a fight back and people knowing well that they're doing something wrong, but continuing to do it on the basis that you don't have a chap on there to say this is a PRASA chap or this is a Transnet chap. On the second question, I think and Honorable Mandla Kai mentioned the fact that they need to see more in terms of the other regions, the skewness in terms of the work that has been done. I think he raised as a concern. Yes, I think we have in fact been talking about acceleration of work in all other regions. And here the East London, the Berlin, we went to see that line recently and look at and actually ride on that train from East London. It takes long because of the problem of the system there, manual authorization problem, which also talks to the issue of the signal that I think the group CEO has mentioned. So I don't want to sound like a defense. Yes, I think we must pay more attention to some of those, all the regions where there is a rail and where the damage is. So, and then the second one was the question that the collapse of the system. I think, yes, we agree that the collapse of the system of rail, it should be addressed throughout the country. And then I think there was another question from the Honorable Matebula about the Limpopo. Limpopo nothing has been said because of current rail system. And Limpopo is part of what we have introduced in a corporate plan that we need to have at least a rail to Limpopo that can transport people there. So part of the discussion in the concessioning, we have also introduced a discussion around that we need to look at concessioning, because you may not necessarily have the only state that is have ability to just put on the line, rail line from Johannesburg or from Pretoria to Limpopo. You may have to find a partner. So we've introduced that in our corporate plan. The next level will be to actually looking at who can become that concessionaire to provide that. I mean, that plan is broader than Limpopo. It also goes beyond Limpopo in terms of addressing the long rail passenger. transport. So yes, the how train and the issue about the price, it is a challenge because that issue, PRASA can't intervene and intervene insofar as the price is concerned. It must be something that has to do with the provincial government of the Gauteng. I think it falls under Department of Transport of Gauteng. It is not necessarily integrated with the PRASA system. So we're not necessarily going to have a competency as a PRASA to intervene around that. But I think it's a matter that we could also raise with the Department of Transport in Gauteng. And of course, maybe the Transport Department, the DG and the team could also pick it up with the Gauteng provincial government around some of those issues. The corruption, I think the GCO can deal with that, because I think there has been a number of initiatives that we have taken as PRASA to make sure that we deal with this issue, including the recovery of the money that we have lost in the corruption space. And so the detailed Group CO can deal with that. Now the issue about, I think the Honorable Boshoff raised the issue how much has been lost on a daily basis, and this was a reference to a rail system that is not available, and therefore losing money that could have been an income. I will just say that on this one, we've lost a huge ridership as a result of non-availability of metro rail because of what happened during the level 5 lockdown, the pandemic, that many of the electrical cable has been taken, and they were unable to run. At the moment, I can just say that we had planned to have 138 trips by the first quarter. We're struggling to get to that number because of the fact that you run a diesel and you have to run it at a kind of not so much speed intervals. You have to break it down for the really just be a need of helping the people to get to work and back. So that we have already lost. In fact, we are running something like 120 at the moment, which is also not a full, complete set of rail, because so we've lost millions. If I can summarize it, if we in fact, recently we're talking about having lost so many millions, not only of money, but also of ridership. People who depend on the system has also walked away. I mean, Cape Town Central, transport 60% of people who work in Cape Town. At the moment, it's not there. So we've lost all that income. So there's a lot of money that has been lost. That's why we are working hard to make sure that we bring the system back. Not only bring the system back, also to do a campaign so that people can come back to rail, understanding that it's the cheapest. But I think the most important thing is going to be safety, because the people must feel safe as they walk into the metro rail or any other system. So that's why we are focusing on this, so that it could be automatic that people begin to move from private cars or taxis into it, because they're cheap and safe. That's why we're having this strategic plan that we have come up with. Then on the, I think the Honorable Boshoff also raised the issue about PR2P. PR2P is people's responsibility to protect, as a kind of voluntary function, voluntary activities that communities along the rail line where they live, they could then become a force multiplier. They could look at, in fact, those people who break stuff, they live in those communities. Once the community are mobilized to be involved, then they'll be able to identify, like they've already started doing, and identifying that these are the people in the communities that are selling XYZ. That has happened already in Khayelitsha in terms of beginning to work. However, the full implementation of the PR2P hasn't happened yet because there's been a number of processes that PRASA has to follow in terms of ensuring that they are trained, they comply with the CERA, PCERA legislation in terms of being trained as a patrol officer before they could start doing that particular work. So we have slowed down in terms of those phases so that we are able to fund the training before the deployment. The intention is for them to be volunteers, that the volunteers that are able to get a stipend when they are doing the voluntary work that they are going to do, like the expanded public works program that has been happened before. So that's the plan that we have put in place. But as I say, that the rollout has been slowed down because of the reason I've already explained, that we need to do compliance first and then come and do the implementation. The idea is an important idea, that the sustainable way of making sure that you get flowing of information is when people are involved. When people are not involved, they would not necessarily going to be flexible in giving you the information. Then the issue about 28.6 billion, I think I could just start out by saying this 28 billion irregular expenditure did not mean that all the 28 billion is corruption. It's a result of corruption, but it's in terms of procedure, we have to follow a particular process to determine whether in what is being called irregular expenditure, did PRASA benefit in terms of getting something done out of that irregular expenditure, or was that money just lost? So the process has started since we arrived in October 2020 to determine this 28 billion irregular expenditure. We've gone through a process, rigorous process in terms of following the National Treasury regulation around how do you determine what has been the benefit that you have in terms of the expenditure or irregular expenditure. And then submission, after you've done that process, you must go back to Treasury to report in terms of what your findings and what the report is. We have, by 31st of March 2021, submitted a report to Treasury accounting to 11 billion rand. That this 11 billion rand that was characterized as irregular, this is what was done with the 11 billion rand. This is a project that were implemented in terms of the 11 billion rand, and therefore that Treasury must consider reallocating that money from the irregular expenditure, because it's a proof that the goods were received in terms of that. The team continuously is working on the remainder of these, because the intention at the end is condoned, is to ask the condonation aspect, that this money, as it was declared, now has been confirmed. It must now be condoned to have been done, having in fact been deployed to do the right thing. So the balance of the 11 billion, as I said, is already submitted. We have submitted that to Treasury, and we're waiting for Treasury to go through its own process and to determining whether what the answer that we are giving there is accurate or not. But the team continued to work with the remainder of the 28 billion rand, again to asking the executive to look at what was this project for, and what was the money that what are the goods that were received and what the goods were not received, in terms of separating that. So that work is continuing to make sure that at the end of the day, there's accountability of the 28 billion rand. What has that money done in terms of the regular expenditure? We'll be able to report later in the year in terms of that work as what how many of this remaining 17 billion has been found to have done X, Y, Z. Then I move away from there to the, I think Honorable Dengo raises the lines of Soweto and Randfontein and Springs. What is going to be done with that? I think the group CEO has indicated how to focus in terms of if you look at the priority aspect of which lines are mostly commuting or transporting the majority of people. So where to line, I think is part of that in terms of making sure that you revive it. And that is why it's been identified. So where to Naledi, all of those lines has been identified. Now, if you don't see them in the presentation, because we can't afford to do everything at the same time because of the capacity and non-capacity, we have basically looked at how do we spread the work over a period of time, basically the year after year. So we've taken kind of a 3-year approach that if we don't have enough money now, so we will schedule the main 10 line now and the 10 line later. It may well be, but I think the group CEO can explain that detail in terms of the Soweto and those lines that has been mentioned. And then, of course, the group CEO can also deal with the issue about the clarification that is required by the chairperson around whether the tender was advertised. His inclination is that it may have not been advertised. That's why there's a problem. And then let me deal with the central line, the work that has been done there. I think the minister has, indeed, it's true that the minister had a meeting with the provincial government and local government in the 2020. And when we arrived, he explained to us the meeting that has happened and that we needed to follow up on that particular aspect. And I think he did, after he had those meetings and he reported about the progress and non-progress, the board obviously followed up on some of those issues to make sure things happen. But it's been a moving target, Chairperson, with respect. That when you have a meeting today, you think you have made an agreement progress. And then when you come back the next time, you find that you have actually taken 2 steps back in terms of the progress. We have went to the provincial legislature of Western Cape to go and also give them the report back around the work that has been done and what seems to be a slowing down the work. So that they can help us as a portfolio committee in the province to engage the provincial government of the Western Cape on the commitment to do certain things. So we can say here again that our appeal is going to be that the committee engaging with the work that they oversight, they continue to help us in terms of unblocking the blockages. The blockages so far has been slow movement because PRASA can only request. The authority in the Western Cape will be local government, will be the city of Cape Town, it will be the provincial government. We have given what we needed to get from assistance. Now, I think they have done their bit. The provincial government, they have helped identify land. The issue has been the land. And now PRASA has got no business to buy land. At some point we needed to buy land, to find money to buy land, but the province and Treasury said, no, but you run trades, you don't buy land. That's a competency of provincial government and local government. So there's been a struggle and slowdown around identification of land to remove the illegal squatters on the rail. And Public Works has intervened recently nationally to make sure the land is available, as well as the provincial government, Department of Transport has done that. But obviously now we have to do the facilitation to try and get the people off the rail. And of course, there's some struggle on that because there are a number of interested groupings, I must say that are now coming on to the fore to say, don't move these people unless there is a proper housing. There's a petition that is running right now, which can also be explained, that communities as adjacent to where the people must move to, they are running a petition as the figure was that they have a 3,000 petition that these people must not move there unless there's a proper structure, housing structure that has been built there for them to go, not in a shed. So these are the things that are outside of our purview, given that we are not necessarily that particular authority. And we are very worried that we may not necessarily make sufficient progress if we don't do, if it's not a proper working together that we are able, otherwise the authority that has authority on land and to intervene, that they help us to intervene. Because we are appealing, we are begging, we're asking that that's all where we end. But the court order is already been given. Yes, the thing about the Philippi, Kailicha issues, all of that is part and parcel of our plan. People that must be removed from every place where they are in a rail reserve, because they're not supposed to be in there. It's part of this plan. But in the Philippi area, there is a possibility. That's what we discussed with the city of Cape Town, of land swap, that where they have already occupied, the 6,000 of occupy the Philippi yard, instead of move the yard from there and move the yard further down to Captain's Cliff, but that land belongs to the city. There's a discussion about the city giving us that land, and then we give them the land that is already been occupied. But it's a process that goes very slow in terms of engaging. We have already said, this land you can have, give us a land so we can move the yard. We need to get an answer from the city whether they are agreeing to give us that or not. But obviously it takes a bit long for that to happen, Chairperson. Maybe the Group CEO can also deal with the insourcing of the security personnel that you ask, Honorable Chair. And then I think obviously the corruption case, the advertising of the dispute where there's a legal dispute, and any other part that I may have omitted in explaining it, that the Group CEO can end the answer question. Thank you, Honorable Chair.
Thank you, Chairperson. Honorable Chairperson, may I proceed with your consent, please?
Yes, you can proceed, Mr. Matthews.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. I think the chairman of the board has covered a number of the questions raised by the members extensively. However, let me first, if I may, take in reverse order, Chair, the question you raised about security. Security, Chair, is a contested terrain, particularly in the PRASA environment. You'll be well aware with the history that we have experienced since the termination of the security contracts and the decision to have our own in-house security team, as Chair correctly notes, that's 3,100 that are there. But Chair, it is a number that unfortunately falls far short of the requirements that we need as PRASA, given the challenges that we face, that members have alluded to with respect to vandalism, the ongoing nature of the vandalism and what I would term as the economic sabotage to our environment, issues that our security are clearly not necessarily equipped to deal with in a comprehensive manner. The scale of our network across the country makes this a very difficult challenge. The cases that were lodged when the contracts were terminated, there was a judgment that Judge Klope, the Judge President of the Western Cape, made that precluded us from going to market, and that we must satisfy, in particular, the security companies that brought the case. We have been doing that at great cost to the company. However, we are now at a position where National Treasury has given us an approval to utilize the AXA panel and the ESCOM panel. That was problematic with respect to ESCOM because those contracts that existed had ended. We therefore were permitted to utilize 9 companies on a short-term basis to be appointed through a tender process. We have done that. That process has just recently concluded, where we will look to appoint companies for a 12-month period to augment our current 3,100 security detail. In addition, Chair, we are in the process of a much bigger, broader tender process, which we hope we will probably likely run towards the end of the year. This is in recognition of the fact that our requirements are far greater, and the exposure that we sit with in the process of rehabilitation, rebuild of the infrastructure, as I've outlined earlier, require us to have a very, very comprehensive additional security resources that we will deploy, a new security strategy which will involve command and control and all the modern technology that needs to be utilized in furtherance of our security objectives and to deal with the challenges that are specific to the network. So that, Chair, is a process that is currently underway, and I can assure the committee that we are giving it a substantial amount of attention to make sure that we have the right expertise advising us. We have brought on additional technical expertise, additional competency to make sure that what we currently have, we are able to actually utilize the best expertise. Tomorrow, in fact, a meeting has been canceled previously, but tomorrow I'll be meeting with the National Commissioner of Police tomorrow morning to discuss with him some of the areas where we feel that there could be joint assistance and joint collaboration. The challenge obviously we have is that we are not a police force per se, so we're reliant on law enforcement for assistance. So I'll be discussing that with Commissioner Sitoli. Unfortunately, events have oftentimes meant that we've had to postpone meetings given some of the challenges the country experienced recently. But I'm sure that in our discussions, one of the items we will discuss is whether or not they would be willing to bring the railway police back to life, as it were, because we would need that additional capacity to protect the network. We attach great significance to that in light of the expenditure in security alone that we must make. So I can assure the committee that is something that is receiving a great amount of attention from myself and my colleagues. The chair has spoken to the Langa process, I think, in detail. All I can add is that we believe now all the necessary building blocks are in place, and we hope that we will bring this matter to a successful conclusion. Chair, on the issue of GLAD Africa, the GLAD Africa GIB case, the current case that's impacting the modernization of the depots, I would not want to wish to go into a huge amount of detail, given the fact that the matter is currently under review before the courts and we are engaged in it. However, it was advertised, a process was followed, and the process was compliant with PFMA. One of the bidders is aggrieved, and that is in papers, and has laid out their case in some degree of detail. And we as PRASA find ourselves in the unfortunate position at times, we get caught in the middle. We want to appoint suppliers, we want to get the work done and achieved. However, at times you'll find that this is a process that is very, again, contested, given the numbers, the finances involved. However, we believe in the methodology that was used, that we followed a proper process, our own advocates, that we've asked to independently conduct a review and assessment of the process that was followed by our SCM and procurement teams. We're satisfied that we followed a proper process in that. So we're quite comfortable in going to court and defending PRASA's position to ensure that this work can continue. If the court makes a decision in one particular direction, I've asked my colleagues, let us have plan A, plan B, and plan C, so that we can make sure that this work can continue and cannot be interrupted. Honorable Django asked about Randfontein and Soweto. I think the chair touched on those, but again, chair made clear, it's also a function of expense. It's also a function of capacity, but clearly we are committed to bringing those lines back. We've lost substantial revenue by the fact that those lines have not been operational, but we are quite clear that if those lines do come back at a point, they can be substantial revenue generators, particularly the Soweto line. What we want to look at, Chair, and as part of my own assessment with my colleagues over the course of the last 2 weeks, and going out to Randfontein, Davidson, and other areas, to ensure that if we can have limited use of those lines, we should look to do that, so that we're not just focusing on the priority corridors, but let us have a strategy in place that will bring back the lines that we could run limited service on up to a certain capacity. So we're looking at that, and we're seeing which of those lines we can operationalize in a short space of time without drawing too heavily on our CapEx resources. So that work is underway, and I can assure the committee that we would hope that we would have some definite answers on that issue by the end of October. I think Chair has dealt substantively with the PR2P campaign and the other issues. Chair, I must just speak to, obviously corruption is a concern, has been a concern, not just of the committee, but nationally, and of the Department of Transport and National Treasury. We are putting in place, I believe, Chair, mechanisms that will ensure greater accountability. We have on a daily basis the Group CFO leading our engagements with the Auditor General and the team from the Auditor General to ensure that we are compliant. Issues that were highlighted in the so-called derailed report and the findings from the Auditor General are being addressed. A project that we have embarked on in the last few months is a very, very extensive asset verification exercise, so we can know and identify the assets that the company has. And that is something that is ongoing, that has been led by the Group CFO and her team. Very arduous work, very complex work, but we knew that we had to do it. And I believe, Chair, that we will get it completed and be able to provide the Auditor General with the questions around irregular expenditure that have been raised previously, so that we can start to turn the business around in terms of our financial controls and the controls that we need to have in place. Honorable Mandla Rai, just to touch on, Chair did speak to provinces, very much a part of our assessment as we look to the future. So we've spent time in the Free State. We'll be looking at Limpopo, whether we can look at some form of limited introduction of MLPS services along the Messina line. So we're not unaware of the fact that unfortunately, the other provinces obviously do receive a measure of attention that's disproportionate to the attention that is received by other provinces, but we're certainly where there can be lines that can be restored. The Director General has spoken about the Tabanshu line and other spur lines, and as well what Chair mentioned in terms of concessioning. We want to find ways to where there can be partnerships, public-private partnerships, where we can generate additional revenue by the utilization of networks that have been previously not utilized. Then certainly these are things that form part of our long-term strategy to rebuild and restore PRASA in totality. Honorable Chair, I think I will leave it at that, and I hope that at least I've managed to address some of the points that members have asked, but I think that the Chair was comprehensive in his answers, and I don't want to take up too much of the committee's time. Thank you, Honorable Chairperson.
Thank you, Group CEO. DM, any last thought as we come closer to the end?
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Let me also welcome honorable members' comments, proposals, suggestions, as well as questions that honorable members asked. For us, even questions do help us in a great way and deal to sharpen our thinking as well as actions. So welcome even the questions that members ask. When honorable members appreciate our work, any progress, no matter how minor or major, we welcome such comments. Our intention, as it has been said, Chairperson, is to revamp passenger rail services in all the provinces, as both the Chairperson of the board as well as the Group CEO have indicated. We will do it taking into account, of course, the resources and the capacity that we require, but we are committed to that. It is our intention to modernize the passenger rail services in particular, and rail services in general in South Africa, in all the provinces. Gauteng, Chair, if I were just to say something about it, is a Gauteng province project, as the board chair indicated. The model used, in fact, yes, the model used is build, operate, and transfer model. And we are left with about 5 years towards the transfer aspect of the model. The model, of course, Chair, goes with contractual obligations. And I think I would want to leave it at that. Chairperson, as you have seen in the presentation, we are working within timelines. The monitoring is being done very closely, whilst ensuring that we do not micromanage PRASA. We give them the space to do their work and to manage PRASA. However, we hold them accountable so that they keep to the timelines that have been set by themselves. And also, we have also agreed with them. We have taken note of the issues regarding eviction of people that encroach on the railway lines. Chairperson, as you raised that, we've taken note of that. And we want to thank the Select Committee for this interaction. We remain committed to subject ourselves to your scrutiny, and through yourselves to subject ourselves to the people of South Africa that you represent. We thank the DG of the department, Mr. Alec Moem, who's part of this meeting, the board chairperson, the group CEO, who made comprehensive presentations to the Select Committee. We are committed to modernizing railway services, in particular the passenger rail services in South Africa. I thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you, DM Chikunga, for the manner in which you led the team in terms of appearing before the Select Committee to make a reflection in terms of the work that PRASA is doing, and also taking our public into confidence in terms of where we are around our corridors, your recovery execution plans, your progress with regard to maintenance on infrastructure. You were able to give us an overview around those projects, and also your execution plan, the project implementation, which is quite critical in terms of monitoring and evaluation. But more than that, the progress that we are making with regard to the presidential projects, the take home is that the Mabupani line is at 54. Is at 54%, and the central line is at 47%, and you are also able to bring to the fore the areas of challenges, but more than that, the depot modernization project. I think as the Select Committee, we are comfortable with the gist and the thrust of the presentation. Of course, there were a number of emphases that were made by the members, and we are looking forward to the team taking heed of those areas. I think what's quite critical is it's infusing confidence in the work that we are doing, particularly with the clarion call to have a free corrupt system. It's always a challenge when the work that we do, particularly when we are running against timelines, to have some disruption brought as a result of criminal acts, from land invasion, from theft of cables, copper cables, which it's a matter of concern. But we are happy with the measures that the entity is putting in place to try to reverse the tide, with a view, particularly to ensure that you are able to occupy your rightful place as part and parcel of our overall commitment to infrastructure development. But how do we use this avenue and opportunity to ensure that jobs is created, the role that we play in terms of the economic reconstruction recovery program, but more than that, how do we ensure that some of the structural constraints in our economy is addressed? Therefore, there has to be an emphasis also in terms of small, medium, and micro enterprises. More than that, cooperatives. That the expectation is that the youth and our women must be empowered as we developed our rail system. Thank you, DM. Thank you, Chairperson. Thank you, Group CEO, and your team, as we allow you to leave the platform. Have a wonderful afternoon. We just want to finalize our in-house smaller issues. Thank you, Deputy Minister and the team.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Honorable Chair.
Thank you, DG. Honorable members, let's then get a sense from the Committee Secretary in terms of the minutes that we must process.
Thank you, Chairperson. The minutes that we need to process is the meeting that took place on the 1st of September.
Okay.
Yes, Chairperson.
Okay. Yes, can you take us through?
Yes, Chairperson. As you can see, this is the minutes of the 1st of September. Members present, apologies. Guests, yes, yeah.
Right. Okay, those are the issues. Yes, okay. Let's go to the comments and deliberations. From 4.1 up to 4.4, those are the issues that were raised, and then 5 is the report, and then the adoption of the minutes of the 25th of August, and then the matters arising. Let's okay. And then that is the end. Any correction, honorable members? That's where the issues that were raised.
There is a hand, Chairperson.
Yes. Honorable Chief, that's it. Is it an old head?
I think so.
All right, can you get a mover in the absence of any correction?
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. Honorable Mushodi move for adoption of the minutes.
Thank you, Honorable Shori. Can you get a seconder?
I second the chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Dango, for seconding. I think the emanating from this meeting, I think tomorrow we'll be adopting this report. I think in terms of our program, Supera. I hope that we are ready for that. And then let me then take this opportunity to express a word of gratitude to our team, committee secretary, the researchers, for ensuring that indeed as select committee members we are able to process today's agenda, and also a special word of gratitude to the select committee members. Very wonderful in terms of how we engage. At least we are now in a better position to understand how far we are with the presidential projects, but more than that, an overview around our rail system and in our corridors. So with those few words, honourable members, we are happy to formally adjourn the meeting. Thank you, honourable members. The meeting
Recording
stands-
stopped.
Goodbye.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
So, bye-bye.
Right.